It looks something like this.
Hello gorgeous, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit different than what you would typically see on my channel. Things that you hear are usually pretty lighthearted and a lot of makeup and beauty and that kind of thing. Today's video is gonna be really real. I haven't been private about my journey or struggle recently with postpartum depression, and I wanted to actually just sit down and film a video about it because I have really gone through it these last couple of months, and I hope that what I have gone through, that maybe other moms will watch this and feel a little bit of comfort that they're not alone. So if you listen to our podcast, which is Hello Baby Podcast, it's on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, then you already know a lot of the story or all of it. But I wanted to also put it out on YouTube because it's just a very real topic that I feel like a lot of people don't, well, not a lot of people, but enough people don't talk about. And I just wanted to be really open with you guys, which I am a lot on my blog and especially on the podcast. I'm really open. But on YouTube, we keep things pretty surfacey and yeah, surfacey, I guess, is the best word because we do a lot of makeup and stuff here. Me. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what I've been going through and, you know, where I'm at with everything so that you guys can understand and hopefully maybe it'll help somebody who's watching this video one day. So at this time, McKinley is 16 months old. I didn't really go through postpartum depression when I first had her. Day 3 after I had her on a Saturday, not late night, but kind of late at night. I had her at like 8:30 at night. I didn't have any sort of depression until Tuesday. So that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And it wasn't even depression. I just had like this rush of tears that I couldn't stop crying and I didn't know why, and it was momentary. It lasted maybe an hour and then that was it. And I didn't really have any other postpartum other than that. Of course I had like freak out moments over the first, like around week 3, because the reason for that was that my mom was here helping me the first 2 weeks, and when she left, Matt was working nights and I was alone with this new baby and I was recovering from a C-section, and I just felt overwhelmed. So I had moments where I would just, you know, cry because I felt overwhelmed by a screaming, crying baby that I'm like, I don't know what to do. What did I get myself into? But they were fleeting and they didn't last, and that was that. So when that period of time or that week or whatever it was passed, I just kind of thought, okay, well, postpartum is behind me. Like I went through it. I did it. In hindsight, I don't think that was postpartum at all. I think that was sleep deprivation, and that was it. A new mom and just like experiences of just like, whoa, this is intense. So I didn't go through any postpartum at all, in my opinion, now looking back. I have never dealt with any type of depression. I've never dealt with any type of anxiety. I have never dealt with any type of insomnia. So when I weaned her at 13 months from breastfeeding, it wasn't a decision that I mapped out that this is the day I'm going to stop breastfeeding her. I had slowly weaned down to 1 nursing session per day, because she just got to the point where she didn't want to nurse anymore. And it was honestly a fight with her because she was too busy. She just didn't want to lay there and nurse. She wanted to be on the go. She wanted to be crawling around, and she was just done. So at the end of January, I actually needed to start taking antibiotics for a UTI, and she was fighting me every single day about breastfeeding. And like I said, I was down to 1 session a day, and that was at bedtime for her. And it was just like, okay, I guess this is just the time to let it go. And she never looked back. She wasn't one of those babies who, you know, would pull up my shirt and want to breastfeed. And she just didn't do that. She was just done, which made it really easy for me. I didn't cry about it. I didn't mope about it. A little bit I was like, well, that's kind of sad, because it felt like that was my bond with her that only I had and nobody else had. But it was like fleeting, and that was it. I didn't sit there and dwell on it, like it was just like, okay, this part of motherhood is done and on to the next. After I weaned her, I went through a period of time where I had about 8 weeks where I was sick, where it was like one thing, I would get well from one thing and then I would get something else. It was just back to back to back to back to back, where I just could not get healthy. And Matt was sick in there too. And my mom, she was like, it was just like none of us could be healthy except for McKinley. She was healthy throughout that period. And I don't know if that is what spawned it on top of, I honestly feel like my immune system took a hit when I stopped breastfeeding. I don't know if that's like scientific or not, but I feel like that happened. And after I stopped breastfeeding, like I said, my immune system seemed to take a hit. My hormones seemed to be going bonkers. And about 2 months, about 8 weeks to the day I stopped breastfeeding, I started to not sleep through the night. And it was just one night out of nowhere, I just could not sleep. I just would wake up every night at the exact same time, no reason why, and it was like, eyes open, and could not sleep. It didn't matter what I did, and I've never dealt with that before, so it was like, what is going on? Why can't I sleep? So one day led to the next day, then it led to a week, then a couple of weeks, and it just like, the days started mounting on each other where I was not sleeping. I would fall asleep at night at normal bedtime, sleep really good, and then, whatever time it was that I was waking up, I think it first started at like 4, and then it moved to 3, then it moved to 2, and then it moved to 1. Like I would go several days in a row that I would wake up at the exact same time, and then it would shift. And finally, it just caught up to me, and I was just so exhausted that I went into my primary doctor, and I'm like, well, first I went to my OBGYN and I said, I think my hormones are out of whack because I'm not breastfeeding anymore. Can you do some blood work? So she did my blood work. Everything came back normal. My progesterone and my estrogen were a little bit low, but not anything that was like, okay, you need to do something to like up this. It was just a little bit low. And so at that point I went to my primary doctor, and thankfully he immediately recognized in me that it was postpartum. But specifically, he recognized that it was post-weaning depression. And the reason he recognized that is because his own wife actually went through it at 1.5 years postpartum. And I'm like, I have a now 14-month-old. How could I possibly have postpartum? And he told me that you can actually technically get postpartum depression for up to 3 years after giving birth. My mind was like, what? Like, that's crazy to me, especially because my hormones don't even seem like, on paper, they seem okay. And he's like, you can't look at it that it's necessarily hormone driven, but the hormones definitely added to the problem. So I left his office feeling like, okay, well, at least I know what's wrong with me. At least I have a name to what's going on. That makes me feel a little bit better. But it doesn't fix anything, like it was like, okay, well, this is what's wrong with me, but what do I do? And he wanted to put me on meds at that point, and I just was like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to go on meds. But he did give me some medication to sleep. And it was a particular medication that I was familiar with because I've taken it before in the past, like once or twice. So I went home. The sleep only got worse and worse and worse, and I was on a mission. I was going to fix this thing that I was going through, and I was going to do it naturally, which, good for me that I want to do things naturally, of course, but at the same time, it was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I had never dealt with anything emotionally driven before, and the longer I went without sleep, the more anxious that I got. The days mounted, and I described the way that I felt as I felt like I had an electric current running through my body, that it started at the bottom of my feet, or like it would be tingling on the top of my head or in my fingers, and it just felt like a constant buzzing through my body. Actually, as I'm talking about this right now, my throat feels a little bit tight even. And the reason that I forgot this part, the reason I went to my primary doctor in the first place is because I was so tired the night before I saw him, but I knew I wasn't going to sleep through the night. So I took 2 Tylenol PM and I woke up at 2:30 in the morning with a panic attack. I didn't know what a panic attack felt like because I'd never had anything even remotely similar to that before, but Matt recognized the symptoms in me, thankfully, and he was able to talk me through it and get me through it. But the next morning I woke up and I was like, I gotta go to the doctor. There's something not right here. And so then, the postpartum label on it at least made me feel better. So fast forward, and I got myself into a naturopath doctor, which turns out that doctor wasn't functional medicine, but she was a naturopath. And the very first time I saw her, this particular doctor, they basically looked at my blood work from my OBGYN, took some blood work, and listened to my symptoms and gave me a sheet of 13 supplements to go on. 13. And I was so desperate that I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I bought everything that she recommended, and everything that she recommended that wasn't available in her office, I ordered off of Amazon. And I tried the cortisol manager because I was told that my cortisol levels were firing or whatever, were too high, and that's why I wasn't being able to sleep through the night. And so I tried that, and she looked at my blood work and said, well, your estrogen's low and your progesterone's low, which I knew that, but she was like, well, we need to get that up. So put me on all these supplements for that. I was so anxious at that point in my mind because of my lack of sleep and because of the postpartum that I was scared to even try the supplements. I was scared to do anything new, or I was just so anxious and so scared of everything. I was just in such a bad headspace. I tried some of the supplements. I didn't give them weeks to work like I should. I mean, because I know that that's what you're supposed to do. I didn't do that because I just progressively got so bad. I just got worse and worse and worse. I saw so many doctors. I was just on a mission to not find out what was wrong with me, but fix it without going back to my primary doctor. We got counseling. Matt went with me, and I was getting weekly counseling, and that helped so much. Oh my gosh, it helped so much just because you walk out of there and I felt like 10,000 pounds were lifted off of my shoulders, and it was just so therapeutic to get in there and talk. But the deeper I got into the postpartum and the more anxious I got and the less sleep that I got and the more depressed that I got, the more I realized that this truly is postpartum, because I was associating every single negative thought that I was having back to McKinley. That it was overwhelming that I had to do XYZ for her, or it was, I can't just pick up and go to the store right now because I have McKinley. Like thoughts that haven't even crossed my mind in the, year and months that I've had her. But it was so irrational because every single thing that I thought wasn't rational. It was I couldn't even make sense of my own thoughts. And it just kind of snowballed and snowballed. And I got into such a dark place in my thoughts that I would ponder, what is the purpose of life? If I could just pack up my things and go live by myself away from Matt and away from McKinley, I would be okay. Or if I could just get out of this house, just stuff that was none of that is going to make me feel better. None of that is going to fix this. In fact, it's all going to make me feel worse if those things really did happen. But I couldn't tell myself that because my thoughts were just so jumbled and sad and dark. It got to the point where one morning in particular, after a really bad night's sleep, I was so bad that I didn't want to get out of bed. And Matt made me get out of bed. He made me take a walk because the depression was the heaviest in the morning. By about lunchtime, it would lift. And up to this point, I mean, like I'd lost a lot of weight. I'm slowly putting the weight back on now, but I'd lost at least 10 pounds. And he got me out of the house, and it didn't matter what we talked about, or like I'd look at McKinley and I'd start crying, or he'd say something about like I'm gonna be better by lunchtime, and I'd start crying. Like it just the tears were like uncontrollable, and I didn't have a reason for them, but I just would cry, and I'm not a crier. Like that's just not in my personality at all. And that was the day that I knew something had to change. I knew I was desperate. I knew something had to change. So by lunchtime, it did start to lift, but I knew that the next morning I would be back in that bad space because it had become a habit at that point. So we went back to my primary doctor, and he told me that I was suffering, and I was suffering unnecessarily. And when he said that, I just started bawling my eyes out in his office because it was true. I was truly suffering. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to be with McKinley because I thought anybody in the world could take better care of her than I could, because I couldn't even rationalize my own thoughts, let alone care for a baby. And he told me I needed to go on medication. That was the one thing that I didn't want to do. I did not want to go on medication. I did not want to go down that path. I was so scared of it. It was fear, is what it was. But sitting there talking to him, I knew that I couldn't go on the way that I had been going on. And I couldn't just snap out of it either. Like I was just so deep into it, and I was just so bad. So I agreed that that's what we would do. And Matt was with me, and he was like, this is what you got to do. Like, it was bad. So we came home, and his mom and stepdad were visiting us, and they prayed for me, and we all prayed together. And I went and got my medication, my prescription filled, but I could not bring myself to take it. I couldn't do it. The next morning, I had yet another bad night's sleep. The next morning, it was my worst morning, or my worst, like, however many hours you want to say, of my entire life. Like, I was so bad. I was in bed. I was so bad off that I was literally begging Matt to take me to the hospital because I was 100% I was just positive that I was having a nervous breakdown. I was positive. And I was crying, and I couldn't stop crying, and I couldn't get out of bed, and I was just so bad. And he called my girlfriend Crystal to come over and take care of McKinley because I couldn't be by myself. And he called my mom, and my mom had been back home in Ohio because she had had a hysterectomy, and he called her and begged her and my dad to come out. And that was the turning point. He called my primary and said, this is going on. And he said, why did she not take the medication last night? She's got to take it. So that night, our counselor actually came over to our house, and she sat there with me and with Matt, and they had to coach me into taking my first dose of medication. It was that's how scared I was. I literally had to have 2 people help me take it. Like, that's how bad I was. And I did it, and I was fine. Newsflash, Angela, you were fine. And it took several days of me not feeling so great, because that's what happens, and you gotta adjust to it. And I've been taking it for 2.5 weeks, and I'm not 100% back to myself, but I feel like I'm almost there. Like, I feel like myself again, like I feel like I'm getting there. And my sleep's still not great, but I do have nights where I sleep, and the anxiety is gone. Like, I still have moments, don't get me wrong, I still have moments, But I've had days this past week where I actually felt joy and I felt happy, and I'm going to tear up right now because like I feel like I'm getting my life back, and I feel like I know who I am again, you know? And it's been so hard to get to this point because I just so badly didn't want to take medication, and I'm not going to be on it for the rest of my life. My doctor and I talked about it, that I'm going to be on it until I get to a good point, and then we're going to wean off of it, and I'll be over the hump, and I'm totally okay with that. But I just hope that if anyone is watching this, that you have gone through, or you are currently going through postpartum, don't suffer like me. Don't suffer in silence. Get help. Talk to your spouse. Go get counseling. Talk to your friends, your family. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. This is so much more common than you would ever believe. Life is not meant to be lived alone. And God gives us people in our lives to help us through. And I believe that about science too. I honestly believe that God gave us doctors and medication and wisdom and technology because sometimes we need it. And I had to let go. I had to let go of my control because I was trying so hard to control my health and to avoid doing what I needed to do. And it literally took me to my breaking point. I literally had to be broken in order to take the steps I needed to get well. Not everybody's going to have the same journey or path or even need medication like me. Like, it's not going to be the same for everyone. But if you do have a journey that looks at all like mine, man, don't be ashamed. It's rough. And sister, I feel for you because this has been the most humbling experience of my entire life. But if even one woman can hear my story and be comforted or feel like she's not alone, then it'll make everything worth it, because at least something good will come out of it, because it has been rough. And but I'm getting back on my feet, and I'm getting back to me, and that feels really good. Like, it feels good that Matt's getting his wife back, McKinley's getting her mom back. Like, I feel like happy to see her in the morning, and I just feel good, you know. I feel good. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this video. It's not an enjoyable video, so that's silly for me to say, but I hope that you can take something away from this, that you maybe know a little bit more about me, or know a little bit more about my experience or what I've been through. I have been in the past, I feel like I've been a very judgmental person about hearing when people have to go on medication for mental or emotional things. Not when somebody like truly needs it, but like when I feel like somebody goes on a medication like I did, I would just be like, and maybe I wouldn't say that or even give them that reaction, but in my mind and in my heart, it would be like a little bit of like a questioning. And now that I've been through it myself, I'm just like, there is no judgment at all. Like, why in the world would I ever have been so against getting the help that I needed, and B, ever have any sort of like judgment at all for anybody getting the help that they needed? It was just stupid that I would ever even think that way. So if you're watching this and you're hearing my story and you're thinking that about me, just know that I thought that in the past too, and I am in a completely different camp now. So yeah. All right, guys, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I feel like you guys know me a whole lot better now. You know, like the inner workings of my heart and my mind and my soul. I'm so thankful that I have such a supportive husband. He has been there through it all with me, and he has been so supportive. And he's been, I mean, I don't think that there would be a man on this earth who could have been more supportive than him, and I'm so thankful for him. And I'm so thankful for my family and friends who have been there for me through this too. And even you guys, like my gorgeous girls, I took a big hiatus there, and I went dark. And it was because I couldn't continue being who I was online and struggling with what I was doing or who I was in real life, because I've always prided myself. Is that the right word? Prided? That's not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. On what you see is what you get with me, and presenting to you guys who I really am. And when I was just in such a bad place, I couldn't do that. So it was easier for me to just turn it off and focus on my health. And I'm so glad I did that, because I needed that. So I'm back now, and I'm feeling good, and I'll keep you guys posted through this journey. But thank you guys for sticking with me and hearing me out and being along on this ride with me. Being a mom is hard. Being a woman is hard. Let's just talk about that for a second. Like, being a girl is hard, period. Like, postpartum aside, it's just hard. Hormones are hard, okay? Can we just say that? We can say that. But, yeah, I'm just thankful that I'm in a much better place now, and I'm thankful that God has been faithful throughout this entire process, and he has brought me out on the other side of it, and I believe he's going to use my story. He's going to use me in some way, and maybe it's this video, maybe it's going to be a conversation that I have with a mom in the future. I'm not sure, but he's going to use this in a way that's going to help other women, and I believe that wholeheartedly. So thank you guys for watching and listening, and I love you all so much. And yeah, I'm sorry it wasn't a happy-go-lucky video today, but next week we'll have a good one. We'll have a happier video next week. Please visit me on my blog, angelalanter.com. That's where these topics really come up. I like to get deep in my blog posts, so follow me over there too. All right, guys, thank you for watching, and I love you all so much. Au revoir.